Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Pro Series podcast. This is episode 57, and I have another guest from Australia. Her name is Donna Guyler from Donna Guyler Designs. She owns a company in Queensland, Australia. We talk about her company, how she started out, and all about design. But before we step into this episode, please make sure you like, subscribe, and review this podcast on wherever you listen to this podcast. And now I hope you enjoy episode 57 with Donna Guyler. Thank you so much, Donna, for joining me today on the Pro Series podcast. So excited to talk to you.
Thank you, Eric, for having me.
I always like to start out each episode kind of like how we've met, or you found me or I found you type of deal. And this one came from Adrian Ramsey, our friend over also in Australia. Are you guys somewhat close to each other, or?
We're probably about 2.5 hours drive from each other,
Okay.
which, in Australia is just down the road, really, for us. We're a very big country and, we like to drive everywhere. But yeah, it's great that he's connected us, across countries. Yeah, across
Oh,
the
yeah.
globe.
It's such a
Mm.
small, it's like, obviously it's a big world, but it's such a small world how we meet and like who people we know and stuff just on social media and also in person.
I know it's so great, and to be honest, it's fascinating. It still fascinates me how quickly this form of just global connection came about
Mhm.
for us. I think you and I were just talking off air about how much COVID has changed the way that we do business and the way that we connect, and social media. I guess for all its negatives, really has opened up the globe to this connection without any sort of boundaries. It's great. It's fascinating. It's really great for networking. It's great for
Mhm.
building relationships and for learning and professional development and education. And it's really a great thing. It's quite fascinating, don't you
Oh,
think, how
yeah.
quickly it all unfolded for us?
I completely agree because if it wasn't for Zoom or, any form of social media, we wouldn't be speaking right now. It's just
Right.
crazy how we could just send out an invite and kind of just hop on a call and schedule around our time differences because it's morning there, right?
It is. Yes, it is. And the fact that we can see each other as well,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm so fascinated to learn about your background and how you kind of got into the design community. And let's start out in the very, very beginning. Was that something you, growing up, wanted to pursue?
I've always been a creative, no question there. I haven't always been a designer. I straight out of school, I went traveling. Well,
Okay.
actually, no, that's not correct. I did get a job in a law firm straight
Oh,
out of because I wanted to go traveling. So I worked for a couple of years as an office junior in a local law firm on the Gold Coast, and I saved to be able to head off overseas. So that's what I did. I went to the UK and lived there for a few years. I continued to work in, very large scale law firms over there. I was just working and trekking around. But I've always been a creative. I knew that what I was doing for work and in my professional career was definitely a temporary option. It wasn't fulfilling. There was something there.
mm,
But you know what? I carried on the corporate circuit. So I lived overseas for a few years. I came home. I moved to Sydney. Lived in Sydney for a few years. Continued on the corporate circuit, and then I was in my 30s, my early 30s, and I thought it's time to do something about this. So, yeah, I decided to study to get my qualification, and yeah, that took me about 4 years to get my qualification. So, and then, yeah, when I graduated, I landed some work experience with a cabinet maker here on the Gold Coast, and I took grabbed that by the horns. I had no idea what was involved or whether or not that was really what I wanted to do, but it was a position that became available in the design and drawing room of this large cabinet making factory on the Gold Coast. So I took that, and gosh, the rest is history. I was doing some work experience with them. They offered me a job at the end of my work experience term, so I continued with them for a bit, and I contracted to other interior designers. And I tried, I guess, different areas of specialization within interior design, because it encompasses a lot.
Yeah.
There's the design and construction side of interior design, and then of course there's the decorative and styling side of interior design. So I really worked with other designers, contracted to other designers, and got some experience across all fields. And until I decided, where I wanted to be, which was sort of firmly in that design and construct, which is funnily enough exactly where I started with the cabinet making factory. So I actually ended up back with another cabinet making factory. And by this time, I was their lead interior designer, because this was about maybe 4 or 5 years into my professional career. So I'd had much more experience. And I was their lead interior designer for their residential division. And after working with them for about 15 months, they decided they were going to close out their residential division and just focus on commercial product. So I essentially would have lost my job. I resigned. I contacted the clients that I was working for at the time and said, look, this is what's happening. I'm leaving. They said, well, Donna, we want to come with you. And I had a business. That's how it
Wow.
started.
It all happened for a reason. That's crazy how it happened that way.
Yeah, yeah. And I look back, and I know personally for me, I'm not a dive in head first kind of person. I'm not risk adverse, but I'm much more methodical and analytical in my approach to things. So my husband was saying to me, for some time before I started to launch my studio, you know what? You need to be doing this yourself, because at the moment you're beating to everybody else's drum, and you're working to the standards set by others. And there's more to this for you. I know that you need to be doing this on your own, but
Yeah.
I really needed that push. I needed that, like, as you say, it just unfolded as it should. I would have lost my job, so I
Yeah.
decided to resign and make those phone calls. And then those clients were saying to me, well, we want to come with you, Donna. So I just needed to get resourceful and set myself up, and get a
Yeah.
desk at home, and get a laptop and get going. So because I don't think I would have initiated that of my own accord otherwise.
Oh yeah. If that never happened, so if that residential division of that company was still live and thriving, do you still think you'd be in there?
Oh, do you know what? Probably not, Eric. No,
Okay.
I think because over time, I guess you gain more experience, you gain more confidence, you're more exposed to, different parts of the industry, and you make connections, as we were saying. And I'm sure that at some point I would have taken the leap.
Mhm.
And because particularly now, I know that, as challenging as being a business for yourself can be,
Mhm.
it was absolutely the right move for me. And, the truth is I'm completely unemployable now. I could
That's
work for
true.
anyone now.
Yeah, that's true. Did you have any business background before that? No. So did you struggle
No,
starting
I
up?
didn't. I did, absolutely. I'm not going to lie. They don't teach you at uni how to run a business. They teach you how to design. There's a small focus around setup and sort of getting yourself set up. But certainly no, they don't teach you how to run a business. And I mean, having said that, I had worked on the corporate sector for about 15 years. So I did come into my design career with some pretty solid foundations and some pretty great exposure and experience in terms of, I guess just setting up my business, framework, sort of template documentation, systemizing the business. And, I'm speaking about this with confidence now, but, certainly when I started, It's, it's very different too when you're working for somebody else and you can see that things are, running very smoothly, and you can also see where things aren't working. And as part of a team, you can work together, to perhaps rectify those things or really capitalize on those things that are working. It's very different when it's just
Oh yeah.
on your own in a completely different industry, a completely different career, applying those principles that you've learned from, huge firms, established law firms, into your little interior design studio where,
Mhm.
now I'm on the job site, I'm out of the boardroom and now I'm on the job site. So it's a completely different industry. Now I'm dealing with trades, whereas previously I was dealing with lawyers and engineers. I mean, that in itself took a huge adjustment.
Oh yeah.
So yes, it was very challenging. I've definitely had to find my way, and I'm still finding my way. Right? We
Yeah.
we just need to
Always
continue to
working harder.
learn. Mm,
Yeah. How did you, when you first started your company, obviously when you were with the cabinet maker, you had the cabinet line to work off of. How did you find manufacturers and get in contact with manufacturers so you could fulfill every customer's needs from a kitchen or a bath or whatever you do in the home? How did you find those manufacturers and get in contact with them?
It's a good question because it is, you do need to be incredibly resourceful, and it's really just making connections, going to the right events, going, just connecting with the right people. So I
Mhm.
guess for us as a design studio, we are designing homes. Everything we do is conceptual. So we are we're designing kitchens, we're designing whole homes, and we're producing conceptual drawings for those homes. So
Mhm.
technically our drawings are not to be used for construction purposes, but we are all qualified designers and architects in my studio, so everything we draw is to scale, it's detailed, it's notated. The cabinet makers and the trades can certainly work from our drawings to produce their own shop drawings. So everything we do is conceptual. But what makes us better designers
Mhm.
is understanding the manufacturing process. So, that the time that I spent working in the cabinet making factory taught me how how to build a cabinet, how a cabinet is made, how it's put together, what happens if you get it to site and it doesn't fit, how are things modified, what's possible, what's not possible. So I started to understand the construction process and the
Mhm.
manufacture of things. So which can also be applied to building works, and then over time, obviously, on-site experience teaches us how things are made and how things are
Oh yeah.
built as well. And so that even though we don't necessarily coordinate the manufacturing process to a certain extent, we do get heavily involved in the process, we don't necessarily coordinate it. We need to understand how things are built and how things are made and how things are put together. So that makes us better designers, and it makes us able to really push those design boundaries, because we know what's possible and what's not. Although we never consider what's not possible, we're always looking at what's possible.
Yeah, I agree with that because that's something that a lot of people don't think of. I mean, over here in the United States, HGTV is a huge thing, which is a
Mm,
TV network that has all these home renovation shows.
yes.
And people think designers are really just doing the aesthetic part of the design, when in reality, yeah, there are some designers out there that do that. And those ones are probably not successful because they don't know the makings of the design work, especially with kitchens. People think you just throw a bunch of cabinetry in a room and it's going to make the kitchen. You need to know everything from all the type of moldings that they have.
Mm,
If you look into a cabinet book, spec book, like like there's endless amount of pages of just moldings that you need for different situations. So if you don't know that stuff, you're putting your customer at a disservice, and it might cost you not just a customer, but the design might not be perfect. And I bet you any money you've probably seen pictures of other people's work, and you zoom in and you're like, I think you're missing this right here.
yes, we have. But I mean, design is about form and function, right? As just as much as it is aesthetics. I mean, really for us, form and function is the most important thing. You know, as designers, that's where we add value. So yes, we can design beautiful kitchens that look lovely, but you know, before we get to that point, it's about the design of that kitchen. It's about, you know, what needs to go into that kitchen, how that kitchen's going to be used, how it needs to be put to work, how it's really going to work for that family. And you know, and even more so, it's, you know, obviously it's standard sizes, and you know, standard cabinetry depth, standard benchtop heights, standard thicknesses, hardware. You know, there's so much that goes into it,
Yeah.
that I guess, you know, that is really the core of design and interior design. And you know, having said that, you know, obviously yes, there are lots of decorators and stylists, and I think there is a place for that discipline, that there
Absolutely.
is. I think it's maybe the lines get a little bit blurred from time to time.
Yeah. I think it's they're two different fields, but they overlap in many ways. And it kind of gets confusing, that overlap where people think they kind of put both of them together. And it's also kind of like that way with architecture and interior design. They overlap in less minimum ways than a decorator and a designer, but it kind of gets confusing on where some people's work lies if you're not in the field to know what each profession does.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how it operates in the States. I'd be interested to understand. But so here in Australia, there is a governing association or a governing body for architects.
Yeah.
So it's an established and recognized profession. There
Mhm.
is no governing body for interior design. So the result of that is there are many people working within our industry that can refer to themselves as interior designers without, you know, any sort of necessary
Yep.
qualification. So that doesn't happen, obviously, within the architects industry,
Mhm.
because it's regulated. So that doesn't happen for us. Is it the
Yeah.
same in the US?
It is the same,
Okay.
which is sad. It's also
Mm.
like, there's people that could just they think that, they're Architectural Digest fans or HGTV fans and think they could just slap interior designer on a business card and call it a day. But yeah, that's something that they've struggled with. In some states in the United States, you cannot call yourself a designer unless you have your NCIDQ. But some states, that's not the case. And I know it's a bill that's trying to be passed by interior designers through our government. And maybe one day that will happen, hopefully, because it will kind of unblur that line that's going to be there. Um, but also, it runs into situations where there are different organizations that you have, like the ASID and NKBA and other testings that you could have, that puts you into another category of, you know, a
Mm.
certified kitchen designer. Or so it gives you an outlook from other people that you are qualified in different areas and not just interior design, because it kind of saying you're an interior designer has been kind of watered down from just the way our society shows it.
Yes, I agree.
Mhm.
And you know, the industry feels the benefits of that, because there are people like, you know, myself, who is you know, I'm a qualified interior designer. All of my team are, you know, highly qualified, highly skilled.
Mhm.
And you know, we're running a professional practice within this industry, and obviously we're advocating the engagement of a design team in order to really maximize value for your project, whatever that means. And then I guess, you know, you're right, it's we have similar TV shows and things here in Australia, like you guys have on HGTV. Certainly not to the extent that you have, but we have the same. And those shows, I guess, are sending, you know, an opposing message, which is, you know, you can, you know, knock this out yourself. So I guess, you know, one of the biggest impacts that has on industry is our fee structure. And the ability to really, I guess, charge what we're worth.
Mhm.
It's, I mean, for us, obviously, we're an established studio now. We have, a firm fee structure, but we have the benefit now of being established. But for young designers that are starting out, I imagine, it's incredibly challenging to, I guess, sell your worth when we're living in a society where, I guess we're being told by these TV channels and things, which are great for inspiration. They're really great for
Oh,
inspiration
yeah,
and
absolutely.
for ideas, but they're doing our industry an injustice in a
Mhm.
sense because, they're perhaps devaluing, the profession of interior design.
Oh, yeah, and I fall fault to some of that too because I watch some of those shows. Um, there's a handful of them that are actually, like, truly produced well, and the designers are really good on the shows. They've gone to school for design, and it's fun to watch those ones, but they are missing a lot of the actual industry, which is sad. But yeah, like you said, it's great inspiration for some of our clients. I'm sure you have clients that come into your office saying, "I saw this on TV. I want this." Which is better than them not knowing what they want.
To which we respond, Eric, no, you cannot have your kitchen in 7 days, which is what
Yes.
happens here on, on
Yeah.
Australian TV. Looking at
Yeah.
kitchens in 7 days. And it's just, it, yeah, it creates unrealistic expectations, I think, in terms of, yeah, the doability of the project on your own, but also, time frames and budget. And, those TV shows are not really, I think, highlighting
Yeah.
the realistic values of those things, during over the course of the project.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had quite a few designers from shows on the podcast, and they've always told me, like, there's a lot more than you're not seeing. 'Cause it's a
Mm,
TV show, they can't show everything, obviously, and they have teams of people that are doing this stuff. You're not having a 40-man team working on your kitchen at a time. Like, companies don't have that infrastructure to get it all done within a week,
that's
um,
right.
which is a big thing. And also pricing. When you go, say you just start out, how did you figure out how much you were worth for a fee, or do you do per hour, or do you do like a lump sum at the end? Like, how do you figure that out?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's so important. And I feel like, I'm not sure what it's like over there in the US, but here in Australia, it's even a little bit taboo. Like we as designers, we don't really discuss with each other what we charge. And
True.
I understand why,
Hmm.
because obviously there's that element of competition. But I think if we can look past that for a moment,
Yeah.
having that an open discussion about what we charge and what we should be charging and what we can be charging is actually going to drive change in the industry and help us, particularly the younger designers, to be charging what they're worth. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
think when I started, Eric, I was charging $40 an hour or something like that.
Okay.
And I made a call to one of my lecturers and said to her, okay, like I've left the cabinet making factory. I'm out on my own. So, all I had to go by was the fee structure that, we used to issue at the cabinet making factory, but really that was a flat fee for, the entire project. So if it was a kitchen and an entertainment unit and 3 bathrooms and whatever it was, there was obviously the cost of the manufacturer and then the design fee and then the installation. It was all wrapped up in a flat fee. So that didn't really help me to establish how I could charge, purely for my design services. So I did. I rang one of my lecturers and said, "What do you think I should be charging?" And she said to me, $40 an hour or $50 an hour or something, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's where I started. And there's no doubt in my mind that, I worked for free for that first year. I mean, I'm sure I've paid clients the privilege of working with me for that first year.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
certainly didn't make any money, but you have to go through that as well to just to work it out. And to be honest, over time, I have floated constantly between hourly rate, flat fee, percentage. I've tried a lot of different things, because you have to work out what's right for you. And my studio has experienced significant growth, so that drives change in your fee structure as well. So
Mhm.
I mean, now we work mostly on a flat fee. Certainly, that's our preferred fee structure, is a flat fee. Certainly, when we're taking on medium to large scale renovation projects, which is the projects we love, that's really the projects that we look to secure. So
Mhm.
medium to large scale renovation projects, we always quote a flat fee. We work on a flat fee that's attached to a nice firm scope of works. We only offer an hourly rate when we can't establish a firm scope of works. So, it might be sort of ad hoc tasks along the way, or if we've got a firm scope of works and a flat fee for this particular project, but now we're throwing in a little something else, we'll say, right, we'll work through that part of the project with you,
Mhm.
on an hourly rate. So we we prefer to work on a flat fee.
Yeah.
We'll only charge an hourly rate if yeah, if we can't establish a scope of works. Because for me, I don't know, I sort of very quickly established that, I don't know, I just don't feel like you make a whole lot of money charging by the hour. I just don't feel
No.
like it was a profitable business model for me.
Yeah. In another way, I was the same way when I first did my first independent job. I asked a designer friend, and one thing they told me was do hourly, like you said, hourly until you know the good scope of work, because people will use you for your time, and your time is worth something, and you can't be working for free forever. So like having that hourly thing is a good crutch for your until you actually get the job, because it will put a fire under the customer to actually make decisions and figure out what they want in the job.
That's right. And I think what inevitably happens for us as designers is you don't charge for all your time, right? You don't charge for all your time. If you're
No.
charging by the hour, you're either doing, a bazillion things at once, so you've forgotten to, put that hour to that project or that hour to that project, or it comes to billing day, and you populate the invoice and you go, oh my God, it's so many hours. How am I ever going to get that across the line? And so we end up shaving hours off. And then we tell ourselves, okay, we're going to shave some hours off here. Then we're going to pick it up over here on the next invoice, or, and that never happens. So
Yeah.
it just, for me, it just felt like a constant juggle. And I felt like I was definitely not charging for all of my time. So I was leaving money on the table. I was losing money. And I was also, I was, I guess I was allowing my clients to value my work based on the time that it took, instead of
Mhm.
the value that we're actually adding to the project and creating for them at the end of the project. It was all coming down to this hourly charge. And it took you, Donna, how many hours to do that? Or
Yeah.
you know that that now the focus is on how many hours it was taking to do things, instead of this incredible value that we were adding to the project far beyond the time that it was taking. So that, for me, that I quickly switched out of that hourly rate structure.
Yeah.
It just felt like, it was just a heavy burden for
Yeah.
me.
And that's a good point, because you will have those customers that like try to bust your balls and try to like wonder why you had that many hours on something. They're like, well, in my job, I was there for 8 hours today and got way more done than just one kitchen job, when they don't know what's all involved. So it's kind of hard to explain to someone that it involved 50 hours, and some people want to break down on what you all did in those 50 hours, but it's impossible to do that.
It is. And that's an icky conversation to have, really, isn't
Mhm.
it?
Oh,
When
yeah.
you feel like you need to justify what you're charging to the client. It's probably a very uncomfortable conversation for the client to, be drilling down and pulling apart your invoice. Like, that is just, like, for me, that's not a conversation I want to have anymore. I have had
Right.
those conversations. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't end well. It's not I was realizing, for me, it was not a relationship that was built on trust and built on value. It was a
Mhm.
relationship that was reduced down to, you know, be, being valued by the number of hours that we were putting into this gig. Like, for me, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. But it's interesting. Like, I follow a lot of US based designers. I'm incredibly inspired by a lot of US based designers, and I get the feeling that the prominent fee structure over there is an hourly charge.
Yeah, I mean, predominantly in the beginning, yeah, I would say so
Yeah.
too. Most people I hear is hourly. I mean, it's hard, and also all comes down to like your manufacturer relationships because, like, if you have a cabinet line that you sell a lot of, you're going to be able to put percentages to it and sell it. Because a lot of times in the beginning, you have these new relationships with manufacturers, and you can't even afford to mark it
Mm,
up because the customer's going to know, well, I could
mm,
get that exact thing somewhere else for a
yeah.
lot lower price. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the beginning, definitely hourly is the go-to thing here in the US,
Mm,
which
mm.
is sad because it's hard to grow off of that.
It is. It is. Yeah, yeah. I'm very intrigued by that model. I guess the positive, I think, of running your whole practice on an hourly rate is, I guess, you can plan more effectively, because
Mhm.
if you've got yourself and three designers on your team, and your charge out rate is X and their charge out rate is X, and they're working 30 hours a week for you times three,
Mhm.
if there's three of them, and you're putting in 40 hours a week at this rate. I guess on a monthly basis, at the end of the month you are billing X every month. So I guess it's great in that sense. So that's certainly not, like, I can't plan that way because we don't charge hourly. We charge a flat fee predominantly. So I project and forecast out our potential earnings based on the number of projects that we're running and what's coming up in the schedule. So I guess it's not as consistent because we have terms. Our terms are 10%, 40%, 40%, 10% at critical times throughout the project. So
Okay.
I have to forecast that way. But I guess if you're charging by the hour, you've got a nice steady monthly flow of income coming into the studio,
Yeah.
which, as you say, does make sense in probably in the earlier days when you're
Yeah.
starting up. You need to build up some cash flow so that you're able to reinvest back into your business, however that looks like for you, whether it's a new website or new branding collateral, or it's another team member. I guess it is a good way to have a steady income and plan for
Mhm.
those things.
Oh, absolutely. And I
Mm,
think as we were talking about this, it also again, kind of waters down what interior design does when you put a flat fee per hour. It kind of gives you like that minimum wage type of feel
mm,
that, like, they're working at a store or something like that that you do in high school or something. So it kind of waters down our profession and what we went through to become an interior designer. So altogether, the more we talking about it, kind of wants to talk me out of it.
yeah, it's yeah. I don't know. Like, for me, it's just it's a no brainer.
Yeah.
We in fact we're undergoing a huge project at the moment to revamp our website. So it's an enormous project. So it's taking 4 months. It's been many months sort of, in the conceptual stage, and now it's taking about 4 months to roll it out. It's a huge project. And part of that is really defining our services. And our services are full service interior design, full home furnishing, studio sessions, which is a new service that we've introduced in the studio this year, which is just a 2-hour intensive consultation. And then our last service is, interior design consultation, which is, where we're charging by the hour. But we're pushing that way down the list, in terms of priorities, in terms of marketing. Well, it certainly doesn't form part of our marketing campaign. It's just
Mm.
there for us because we need to have it as an option if the scope varies, as we spoke about, or if it's a smaller project where we can't determine the scope of works. But for us, it's really about driving forward that full service interior design with a flat fee, full home furnished with a flat fee. Because
Yeah.
for me, it's a stronger business model. It's a much more profitable business model because now you're able to price on value, not
Oh yeah.
not time. You're not just trading time for money. You've moved the conversation way out of how many hours it's going to take. It's like, right, like, what do you want from this home? Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can deliver that, and we're going to do this and this. We go, great. You go, excellent. Here's the price. Great, done, fantastic, let's get to work. There's not those icky conversations about how many hours it's going to take, and justifying that time. I
Yeah.
don't know, it's just a stronger, yeah, definitely more profitable business model for us anyway. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's funny how you said that you're working on revamping your website because I'm here looking at it and it's like one of the nicest websites I've seen.
Ooh, wait to see the new one, Eric.
It's gonna be even better. So one thing that stands out, everybody being interior design or whatever profession they're in, that you want to stand out so your customers see you. And one thing I think you do that no one else does is like these little, like you have your own TV show on here called Webisodes. Why'd you start that? Was that something you've always wanted to do, like be on TV, or is this just kind of something you wanted to explain your process?
Well, if Netflix called me, I wouldn't say no, to be honest.
Plant that seed now.
That's right, Netflix, if you are watching. No, I think it was really driven by how many requests I was getting, and I guess just the interaction that I was getting from my social media account. So we actually run our social media account in-house. We don't outsource it. I run it myself for the whole time I've run my studio. And so obviously it's very interactive. We get a lot of comments, and I read everything, and I respond to everyone. And there was just, yeah, I was just getting these questions about what happens behind the scenes. And I think also we're flooded with beautiful imagery, we're flooded with the end product. We're almost desensitized to that now, right? Like, there's
Mhm.
so much inspiration for us everywhere across so many different
Oh
platforms.
yeah.
um, but I think also, going back to what we were talking earlier about, Eric, and really, the crux of interior design, and what really is interior design. I thought, what, I can show people that. I can show people what interior design is, and I can talk about, how we actually developed the concept for this project, and how we were on site during the project with the trades, directing the trades, working with the trades, and the interior design is very meaty behind the scenes to get to those beautiful images. And when I did the first series, like, it went gangbusters. People loved it. So because people want to see behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
And they want to see you, and they want to get to know you, and they want to see you in action, and they want to see where things go wrong as well,
Yeah.
because not everything's perfect. Like, oh my gosh, things go wrong in here all the time. But how we go about fixing those things. And so, yeah, they've been really well received. And I definitely need to do more of them. That they're very time consuming to put
Yeah.
them
Oh
together. Yeah, but so worth it. So
yeah.
yes, I will be making more. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's a good way to connect with other designers too, because yeah, people like the pretty pictures and stuff that aren't in the industry, and us in the industry too like the pretty pictures too. But it's also, you're talking about like all the behind the scenes stuff, everything that we're doing on a day to day basis. It's kind of fun to relate to someone else, and also relate to someone else in a different country. Like me looking at what you're doing, it's like I see a lot of similarities, and it's kind of, or stuff that you do different, and that's kind of interesting, and it kind of changes your outlook on the profession as a whole, and not in your bubble of the area that you live in.
Yeah, I agree. I love that too. I love watching the way that you guys do things over there, the way you execute the workmanship. I love to watch how the designers interact with trades over there. Just purely by comparison, I find it incredibly interesting as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. It's not just for the general public that are looking for inspiration for their renovation project, or they're considering engaging a designer, so they want to know what it's all about. I agree. It's also
Yeah.
very beneficial for us as professionals as well. Maybe also just to, because sometimes you can look at, other professionals that are very successful at what they do, and maybe, there's a bit of comparisonitis that can kick in or something like that. But so it is good, I guess, that those webisodes also, we try and keep them very
Yeah.
real, and, things don't always go to plan, and things don't always turn up when you want them to, and sometimes
Absolutely.
balls go in the wrong place, or the wrong grout color goes on the tiles, or the wrong carpet goes down. Like those things happen, and I guess it is refreshing and reassuring, I guess, from one professional to the other, to see that they're tackling the same issues that that you are, which
Definitely.
yeah, just challenges that are very, very real and present in our business.
Yeah. Well, lastly, I want to end with, you mentioned something about you do all in-house, you keep your social media in-house. And that's a
Mm,
lot of when I started the Pro Series, I asked for different topics that people um put into, and a lot of it was like, how do you run the social media part, or should I hire someone to do social media? And I've always been against hiring an outside firm to do social media for um, well, not always, but that person running the social media account needs to know the profession, because it loses translation very easily. Even from taking the picture, there was a firm here in Pittsburgh that they would have someone outside do it, has no idea about interior design, and they would take these pictures and they wouldn't turn on any of the lights on in the pictures, or something would be out of place, and you're like, for a fact, an interior designer did not was not part of that planning process with the social media platform. So what was your reasoning on it? Was that the reasoning why you try to keep it in-house, or was there another reason for that?
so to begin with, and actually, I do want to mention just one thing here. Since I
Yeah.
started my studio, I invested in professional photography right from the start. And
Okay.
I remember when I had, $0 in the bank and zero cash flow, but I had to scramble together, $500 or $600 for the photographer, which I absolutely did.
Yeah.
So right from when I started my studio, I have invested in professional photography.
Smart.
And so that really lays the foundation, I guess, for social media and our website and everything else. So even when we were just, little, and it was just me and my IKEA desk and my laptop, our professional imagery created a different perception. So, even though I was struggling to pay for that imagery, it started to create a different perception.
Yeah.
So that is something that I would highly recommend for all designers starting out. Just make that work. Don't take photos on your iPhone. Have every project shot professionally.
Oh, yeah.
So I started to build this beautiful bank of content, and so really, I couldn't afford to outsource initially, so I just started to roll out social media myself. Instagram was a very different space then when I started. It was actually, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was a much faster burn than it
Yep.
is now to
Mhm.
grow your account. So we've got a nice following, but it's taken us a very long time to establish that. So yeah, I kind of just got momentum with it, Eric. Really, I just wanted to keep it real, as I always do, and just speak from the heart and be myself, keep it very lighthearted. I did get to a point a few years ago where it was becoming a bit of a beast. I outsourced it and it didn't work. I pulled it back. So because the tone of voice changed, it didn't feel authentic to us. It didn't feel
Yes.
real. It felt a little manufactured. So I pulled it back. We are actually now considering potentially outsourcing it again, just because I guess we are a little more firmly established. We could probably provide a more defined brief,
Yeah.
or a social media manager to be able to manage our account moving forward, and purely based on time now, because we've got so many other initiatives and so many other things going on.
Yeah.
But it didn't work for me at one point either, so we pulled it back. I think it's very important to have consistency across your social media and your website, and your branding as a whole. So for now, we control all of that to make sure it
Yeah.
all aligns. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you deserve it too. Because, I mean, you started from nothing in the business and now you grew it to what you grew it to. And you deserve to keep that and keep that tone of voice. And I mean, it's definitely workable if you outsource it to someone that you have a lot of meetings with. They have to research the page and all that stuff. So it's definitely workable. And I think as a company grows, there's no way you could be in control of everything. If you
That's
be
right.
in control of everything, you're going to lose out on something. That could be the quality of the design work or the time you could have been with a client or something. You're going to lack on something, and you need to weigh out your priorities. And if social media is one of those, that's totally fine. If you could put more time into your design work and getting better designs for your customer.
That's right. It makes more sense, that we as designers are designing and not, putting up Instagram posts.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. I think what's good also, though, what has also been a great change, and great for us to be able to connect globally, is there's sort of industry specific services available now. There's a lot available, particularly in the US. I noticed, specific to the interior design industry. Set your studio up, and templates, and social media management specific to interior design.
Yeah.
So, which I think is great. And there's no reason why you couldn't. I've actually worked with consultants based in the US. There's no reason why we can't work across countries.
Oh, yeah. You
Yeah.
almost feel like, just like I said in the beginning of the episode, you kind of get out of your bubble. And then me watching your webisodes, I'm seeing all these familiar things. And it's so weird because you'd expect it to be completely different. And
Yeah.
even like down to your styles, a lot of the styles are still the same. And I think that's mostly because of social media, because people could see what people are designing in Australia or see what they're designing in the United States, and they want to mimic that. So like, I feel like our styles have formed together and it's just like under one umbrella now.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great concept, to have a little bit of US design here in our country, and likewise for you guys, like,
Yeah.
a little bit of Australian coastal design over in your homes. Yeah, it's great.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Donna, for coming on the episode today. I'm so excited. I want to end with where people could find you and follow you on social media.
Yes, well, they can find us online at donnaguyler.com, at our existing website, soon to have a complete facelift.
Mhm.
Or, yes, we are on Instagram as well, at Donna Guyler Design.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Donna, again for coming on today. I'm very excited to get this one out.
Thanks, Eric. It was lovely to chat with you. Thank you again.